Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And the world of Fallout 4 is already a pretty horrific one as is. A terrifying marriage of social collapse and radiation-born monsters has transformed the once glorious US of A into a giant nightmare. However, even in this dystopian-esque environment, some events and stories can still stick out to us as particularly spooky. So that's what we're gonna dive in today. Sit back and relax as we take a look at 5 disturbing Fallout 4 facts. Starting off, the wreck of the FMS Northern Star lies south of the Warwick homestead. At first, it seems like your typical raider stronghold. The foes you face here are as hostile as ever, and there's even a handful of mud crabs and other creepy crawly ocean things here that'll attack you too. However, after only a few moments, it will quickly become clear that these are not your average Commonwealth raiders, but they're in fact all ghouls. And when you engage them, they'll shout not in English, but instead in Norwegian. What's more, terminal entries aboard the wrecked vessel reveal that it is indeed a Norwegian shipping boat that was bound for Boston at the time the bombs fell. It seems as though these ghoulish raiders must have been the very members of the crew that wrecked this ship hundreds of years ago at the onset of the Great War. Though with names like raiders, they must have decided to pursue a rather evil lifestyle, right? I mean, they're hostile and have names like Raider Psycho. They can't be good. Alas, further inspection suggests that that may very well be the case. And these Norwegian raiders aren't really all that bad. You see, when translated into English, it's revealed that what these raiders are shouting at you in Norwegian are actually pleas for you to leave them alone. Phrases like, "get off our ship," "stop attacking us," and "leave us alone" are what these foes are truly saying. That doesn't sound very evil or raider-like. On top of that, they'll only attack you if you step foot on their ship. You are kind of trespassing. They don't know who you are or what your intentions may be. Despite their labels, it would seem the raiders of the FMS Northern Star are less a band of evil thugs and more of just a small group of people trying to survive like anybody else. To them, you're the bad guy. Next on our list, speaking of raiders, in the real world we have a number of urban legends and myths. Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, you get the idea. Tales that excite our imaginations, but can't definitively be proven. Well, apparently, even after near nuclear annihilation, the people of the Commonwealth have developed their own urban legends. One of which revolves around a mysterious vocalist man. Should the sole survivor sneak up upon a group of raiders, there's a small chance you may hear them start telling an interesting story. Here, take a listen.
So I'm keeping an eye on those mutant freaks over at Trinity, and this guy comes out of nowhere sprinting down the road. I know he must have seen him standing there from way down the street, but he didn't slow down or even duck into one of the alleys.
What the hell? What'd they do to him? The hounds must have ripped him to shreds. By the way, this guy ain't got nothing on him. Like 10 caps and a desk fan? Who carries around a desk fan?
Ah, damn it. Anyway, they didn't do nothing to the guy. I think they were as confused as I was. Get this. The guy was making sounds.
What do you mean? Was he screaming or something?
Not really. It was almost like he was making motorcycle sounds, like he was pretending he was riding one or something. He was even making gear shifting noises and everything.
So what? Did they just let him drive right by?
Yeah, but he didn't just drive by. He reached in his bag, but didn't seem to take anything out. Until he pulled his hand toward his mouth like he was biting something. Then it looked like he threw it into the Trinity lobby.
What the fuck? What was it? What did he throw?
Nothing. I think he was acting like he threw a grenade at him or something. A second or two later, as he drove his bike down the road, he made a loud boom sound, as if the grenade he had just thrown had exploded.
Are you serious? What a fucking whack job. Whoa, whoa! I think this guy's still moving.
Now, this isn't the only tale you can hear about this abnormal motorcycle vocalist man. You can also potentially hear this other, extremely similar story as well.
You see the last one we tried to pull in, with all the grenades?
Oh, no, I was out doing my rounds. What about him?
Well, Becca pulled him into the front of the store, and everything seemed fine, right? He must have got spooked or something, because he suddenly starts throwing grenades everywhere.
What? What'd you guys do?
That's the thing. It turns out they weren't grenades at all. They were just rocks. He was making the sounds with his mouth. Pins being pulled, the whole 9 yards.
That's fucking nuts. Did you guys take him out?
No, we just stood there. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. After he threw about a half a dozen rocks near the back of the store, he started making machine gun noises and backing toward the door. Once he got outside, it sounded like he pretended to get on a motorcycle, which of course didn't start right away. Then he took off toward the freeway at what sounded like full throttle, shifting gears and everything.
That's insane. How does someone like that survive out here at all?
I don't know. There's some lunatics out there, though.
It looks like there's someone surviving in this wasteland, not by skill in combat nor stealth, but his ability to make hilarious sounds. And clearly it's working for him. Considering multiple raiders have had experience with this acoustic mastermind, he's obviously real and not just some figment of one person's imagination. It's both worth a chuckle and moderately disturbing to imagine that somewhere out there, right now, Motorcycle Noiseman is still metaphorically riding across the wasteland. Coming in at number 3, the Hawthorne residence in Diamond City seems to be harboring a pretty significant secret behind its doors. Should the player pick the lock and enter the home, you'll find that inside are somewhere between 25 and 29 house cats rummaging about the residence. On top of that, there's also a handful of cat paintings scattered throughout the home. Evidently, this overpopulation of felines has gotten so bad that the owners of this home have had to build a wooden platform above their first floor for extra living space. Furthermore, there's also some unfortunate evidence that the people that do live here have quite a bit of an alcohol problem, as on that second story / wooden platform thing, the player can find a huge supply of ale bottles. Now at this point, you are probably dying to know who lives here. And surprisingly enough, this home actually has 2 residents. A young man named Hawthorne, who typically can be found hanging out at the Dugout Inn, probably because his actual home is just so overcrowded, who claims to be a mercenary / adventurer, as well as his grandmother, a woman named Eustace Hawthorne. Eustace is the oldest citizen in all of Diamond City, and she kinda does fit the persona of crazy old cat lady to a degree. Alas, unfortunately, neither Eustace nor her grandson will ever bring up her pet cats in conversation. In fact, you can't even enter a dialogue tree with Eustace, only her grandson, who just tells tales about his adventures. Perhaps they're trying to keep it a secret. Surely the local health inspector wouldn't approve of such conditions, if Diamond City has one, so I don't particularly blame them. Their secret's safe with me. For our 4th spot, we have the tragic tale of Lily Tourette. Lily is, or was, the sister of Red Tourette, leader of a raider gang currently occupying the federal ration stockpile, a bunker built prior to the Great War that was meant to store literal tons of rations and water, which were in short supply during the war with China. After the bombs dropped, the stockpile obviously lost its original purpose, but was preserved thanks to being a bunker and all. And with it, most of the rations survived as well. Meaning, whomever controls this location has nearly limitless access to food and water. And for Red's Raider gang, that meant that they were living like kings. But where there's wealth, there's always someone that wants it. And that someone was Tower Tom. You see, Tower Tom leads, or led, again depending on your actions, his own raider gang, whom ultimately settled in the ruins of the old Beantown brewery nearby. While they certainly had no shortage of alcohol, Tom and his men quickly ran out of food after staking their claim. So, Tom developed a plan. His faction began launching attacks on the ration stockpile controlled by Red's group. Initially, these raids were horribly unsuccessful, as Red's group was simply better armed and more numerous. However, Tom and his men, they were pretty desperate, so they kept on trying. And during one assault, they were met with a stroke of luck. While retreating, they were by chance able to capture Lily Tourette, Red's sister. While he could have just murdered her to death, Tom, he knew better. And so he admits in his terminals that once Lily was in his custody, they brought her back to the brewery. Tom went on to demand that Red send him food and water in order to keep her sister alive. And for a while, this arrangement worked. Red would send food, water, and other rations to Tom's men, and in return, Tom would have Lily write to her sister, confirming that she was unharmed and alive. However, after not too long, things took a turn for the worse. One night, Lily broke out of her chains and made a run for it. Tom fired a shot at her, hoping to simply hit her in the foot or leg and wound her, but he missed, and instead got Lily in the chest, ultimately killing her. He expresses great remorse in his terminal. He knows that if Lily found out her sister was dead, not only would the supply shipments be cut off, but she even may launch an all-out assault on his compound. So Tom did the only thing he could think of, and he's begun simply pretending to be Lily and writing letters sending them to Red himself. This has been going on for quite some time by the time you arrive to read the terminal entries. Over at the stockpile, we can see this same story, but from Red's perspective. We can read her thoughts of anger shortly after her sister's capture, and her developing suspicion after her death, noting the letters she's been getting more recently sound off and unlike Lily. Unfortunately, this is sort of where our complex tale ends. It's only told through computers that the sole survivor can find after clearing both the federal ration stockpile and the Beantown Brewery of their raider inhabitants. When you encounter both Red and Tom, they'll be hostile and have no unique dialogue. There's no quests attached to the tale or anything else. Frankly, if you don't do a little terminal hacking, you'll never know about such a complicated hidden story arc. It's a complicated and depressing one. But at the end of the day, it's difficult to really put blame on either of these raider factions. Tom and his men, they just wanted to eat food. They weren't doing this to be mean, they were desperately hungry. And Red simply wanted her sister back. Ultimately, I think it's background environmental storytelling like this that makes Bethesda games so interesting, even if a little upsetting. And finally, last on our list, is the curious case of the Rogue Knight. Perhaps the most well-known in this video, the Rogue Knight is the final foe the survivor faces in Nuka World's Radiant quest, Amoral Combat, which the player can receive after first completing Nuka World's Gauntlet, a massive dungeon in the amusement park, built by raiders meant to test the strength of any newcomers. According to tradition, after someone has completed the Gauntlet, they must do combat with the Overboss, or leader of Nuka World's raider factions. If that challenger happens to defeat the Overboss in combat, then they themselves become the new Overboss. This, of course, is what happens to the player at the beginning of the Nuka World DLC questline. Anyway, once that's all said and done, and you yourself have completed the Gauntlet and become Overboss, the player will periodically receive news that a new challenger has completed the Gauntlet, and will have the option of doing battle with whomever this foe is, keeping the tradition alive. You'll face off in the Bumper Cart Arena, and there are 6 potential enemies in total, with the last one being this Rogue Knight character. He wields a unique Gatling laser called Aturius, which notably has truly unlimited ammo, though in my game it glitched and he's completely unarmed, making him a lot less interesting. But the real question here is, what's this knight doing in Nuka World? It's possible to have begun the entire Nuka World DLC without the Brotherhood of Steel having even arrived in the Commonwealth. Prior to the Pridwin's arrival, we do know of 2 Brotherhood of Steel recon teams that scouted out the Boston area. Recon Squad Gladius, the one Paladin Danse was a part of, and Recon Squad Artemis, which ventured to the Commonwealth and shortly thereafter completely lost contact nearly 3 years before Fallout 4 takes place. If you choose to join the Brotherhood of Steel, you'll find out that pretty much everyone in Recon Squad Artemis ultimately ended up dying, except for one member named Paladin Brandis, who has kind of survived as a pseudo-hermit for the past few years. Is it possible that Recon Squad Artemis had another survivor that wasn't Brandis? We know one of the big reasons Brandis survived is because he got separated from the original group. Maybe someone in that original faction somehow made it out for himself, and found his way over to the wonderful paradise that is Nuka World shortly after you did. Whatever the origin story of the Rogue Knight, it's certainly one I really wish we could have uncovered for ourselves. But with that, we're going to wrap up 5 disturbing facts in Fallout 4. Which of the ones featured on this list were your own personal favorites? And what unsettling Fallout 4 details do you know of that I've yet to cover? Leave a comment down below. Also, in self-promotion news, just yesterday we uploaded our first ever Patreon exclusive video, and we have plans for another one to go up later today or maybe tomorrow morning, depending on how fast my PC renders. But if that is something that does sound interesting to you, please do consider checking out the Patreon link down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Thanks for stopping by, everyone, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.